losing Brock's future number one weapon, maybe something that you don't want to do. I mean, you're looking at Brandon Ayuk, who's 26. Seemingly, he would grow with Brock Purdy. They can develop that connection over the years. And in 2 years, I mean, the Kittles, the CMCs, the Debos, they're likely not going to be here. Brandon Ayuk presumably would be the number one weapon at that time. And then I would say the other thing, too, is, Davante Adams is a hell of a player. I don't know many receivers that are the blocker that BA is, the willing blocker, and just the way that he fits in the system, being able to open things up down the field. I think he fits perfectly with this system. And so, you kind of look at those things and say, yes, Davante is a hell of a player, but how does he fit with this current cast of characters? Maybe you can look at Ayuk and say, as a puzzle piece, might fit a little bit better, even though he's not as good.
Yeah, and we're worried about targets for Ayuk. Have you looked at Davante Adams, what he's used to last year? 175. Year before that, 180. Year before that, 169. I mean, maybe he'll buy in to 115 targets, or maybe not. Maybe maybe he'll say all the right things in August, but then in November, when he's not going to make the Pro Bowl and the Niners are, I don't know, who knows? Maybe there's a different body language, tone. Maybe he's not necessarily the leader that you thought he would be. I mean, all of those things could come into play.
Yeah, there were some moments on the receiver show from last year where he was disgruntled seemingly for not getting targets, even in a game that they won. But once you kind of watched it a little bit further as the episodes went along, there were games that they did end up winning later on that he wasn't really targeted at all. And his whole point was he just wanted the offense to move the ball. There was a game where he didn't get a lot of targets. The offense wasn't moving the ball well. They happened to win that game, but he was still super frustrated because in his mind, the offense didn't look the way that it should. They weren't moving the ball particularly well. Later on, he kind of cleared that up and was like, listen, I don't care about the targets. I care that the offense is putting up points. If that's without me, I'm totally fine with that. So I don't know that he would be upset about that, but he is used to getting a ton of targets.
Yeah, and it's maybe Kyle wouldn't give it to him. Maybe he would, though. Like, if Kyle really thinks you're that good, he won't get in your way. I think the issue with Brandon is Kyle doesn't think he's that good. Like, he thinks Christian is that good. He won't get in Christian's way. As many times you want the ball, let me know. You can have it. But with Brandon, it's like, you freaking wait until it's your turn.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And also, it's like, if the Niners could extend Brandon Ayuk at the price, if they can come together and agree to a 4 or 5 year contract extension, obviously that's the best option because he's 26. That's the best option. But if that's not going to happen, and the Niners are like, okay, well, we'll let you play on your 5th year option, and then maybe we'll tag you next year, and maybe we could tag and trade you or go year to year. And it's like, well, he's only going to be in the team 1, 2, maybe 3 more years tops, and it's going to be awkward at best. Trade him for Davante Adams. Because, I mean, if you're only going to talk about 1 or 2 years of the guy, like, maybe I'd rather have Davante Adams anyway, and he might be more eager to play on this team. That seems like an easy trade. But if they still think they can work it out with Brandon long term, that would have to be the number one move.
Yeah, I would think so. But I will say this, of all the like floated rumor trades that seem to be out there, if I were interested in one the most, I would say this would be it. I mean, the other part of this is I think the Raiders would also give a pick, not a high pick, probably like a 4th rounder with it. And the reason that I say that, yes, Davante Adams is clearly the better player now, but they also know that they're getting Brandon Ayuk long-term, and Davante Adams is essentially a 1-year guaranteed rental. Beyond that, there's no guarantees. So you almost would have to give a little something else in return. Not a lot. You're not going to get a 1st, 2nd, probably even a 3rd, but a 4th round pick, something like that. So you will get a little kicker with that, I would imagine.
Got a wild card that we haven't mentioned yet. So clearly you like the long-term prospects of keeping Brandon Ayuk, but the 49ers did just draft a wide receiver in round 1, Ricky Pearsall. Sure. And if Kyle's really confident in him, thinks he's a smooth operator, whatever, thinks he's a future number 1 wide receiver, a high-level number 2, then all the more reason to trade for Davante Adams, because who cares long-term? Ricky Pearsall is the answer long-term. He's the real deal. People just don't understand. Or if they've soured on him a little bit because he's injured already. Maybe it's more all the more reason to bring back Brandon Ayuk. Maybe that's why Brandon Ayuk asked for a trade the day that he did. I don't know.
It was interesting timing, to say the least. Extremely. But back to the Pearsall thing, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I don't know that there's a better player to help mentor and develop him than Davante Adams, right? Like, who else would you want to develop your young wide receiver and help mentor him? I think Davante Adams would be a pretty good candidate.
And one more thing before we move on. When the Niners drafted Brandon Ayuk, not a lot of people had really heard of him. He'd only been, at Arizona State a couple of years, and they were trying to justify it. And I remember hearing a lot at training camp whispers from people like Tim Ryan and Greg Papa, like, I think Greg Papa even said it on the record on his radio show. Brandon Ayuk's a lot like Davante Adams. If you had to give him a comp. And at the time it was like, yo, that's kind of lofty praise. Davante Adams, the best in the game right now. So if they could get Davante Adams for Brandon Ayuk, I think that's what they always wanted him to be anyway. They'd go for
get the actual Davante Adams for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Mike McDaniel just got Odell Beckham. I feel like he'd been pining for Odell for a long time. Yeah,
probably too little too late on that one. But as your third wide receiver.
Probably a little too late. Yeah, I'd say Davante's got a little bit more left in the tank.